help. If someone shows up at our door at High Plains, I fully expect our staff to provide a positive experience for them, and I will continue to try to improve that. But if somebody has a great experience, they're likely not going to tell anyone, because they hopefully got the services they need, but it's not a common practice to say, well, yep, I got therapy, and it was great. But we're checking with our clients, and I hope that someday it's a more normal conversation for people to have. But until that time, I still want to highlight for people to understand what services we are doing. And there's a 42% increase in clients reporting that they're mentally healthy overall after seeking services with us. An 87% increase in clients reporting improved functioning in everyday life. 60% increase in clients reporting no severe psychological distress. And a 29% increase in clients reporting they feel socially connected within their communities. And a 99% of the clients reported a positive perception of the care they received at High Plains Mental Health Center. Now, my wife and I like food and like to go find something to eat that's not just the standard chain restaurants wherever we go. It is extremely rare to find any restaurant that would have a 99% positive outlook, but you still find people that will refer you to the restaurant. There's not a lot of people that refer you to the mental health center and tell you that you need to go get help. And I hope that we're able to change that, but knowing that when people do come, they have a positive experience is extremely important to me. The stigma alone, we have a lot different battle to go through to make sure that when people need help, they get the help. But knowing once they do show up that it's provided is really important. And so I always want to make sure and highlight that we're here for you is a very valid motto for us, that anybody that needs services, we will make sure and provide them for them. The Cheyenne County numbers, because I know even though we can talk about all 20 counties, it hits home when we talk about where the actual services are provided for the money that you contribute. In 2023, 52 individuals in Cheyenne County were served by High Plains. And if you go to the middle of the page, just under the graph where we talk about the annual dollars requested, called total patient care. So we're requesting the same amount as last year, $17,304. But our total patient care was 206 hours that cost High Plains $74,569 to provide. And obviously we would be more than happy to accept $75,000, but we do receive funding from the state, and we do receive some things that are tied into what these numbers represent. I just wanted you to be sure where all the dollars go to. They all go right back into Cheyenne County and a lot more than that, because we're trying to provide the best care that we can. If you look at the far right corner again, those family income numbers are specific to the Cheyenne County clients that we serve. So of those 52, 17 unreported, which is common. I don't know why my dad always wants to know how much I pay for a fridge or a car or whatever, but I don't usually tell him. The same way as those 17 people are saying, why do you need to know? But the people that we do have recorded, you have over 19% are under $10,000 for an annual income. And the next box at 4%, the next box at almost 11%. Again, you're getting close to half and well over half if you go under $35,000 a year. And living on $35,000 a year in this economy is not functional, especially for a full family. And that's the individuals that we're mostly serving, and we're happy to do so. But a lot of times we don't have any income coming from that, and so that's where the funding is tied to. You flip to the next page. If you're extremely excited about math and going back and figuring out how that all works, you can spend a long time on how this formula is calculated. But just looking specifically at Cheyenne County, as we said, the request of $17,501.14 versus last year, the actual budgeted funding level would be $197 higher than what you funded us at last year, and 99% of what we were asking for. You funded it last year at 17,304. And then it ties in the last year's benchmark where we asked for essentially the same numbers this year. So the calculation goes into how many people we serve, the total population in the county, and the salaries paid to employees. So there is $35,000 that is attributed to an employee that lives within Cheyenne County in 2023. And so anytime we can employ somebody who works and lives out in this area, we certainly want to continue to do that. Therapy in a small town is unique, where I had to separate that Hayes is still the big city that I knew as a little kid, where I was thinking, well, they're all small towns because I'm used to living in eastern Kansas. But there is a difference where you get in Hayes and you can get a little bit of anonymity, and people don't recognize. Some people may not want to be the therapist that lives in St. Francis and everybody knows who they are. And so we're looking at ways to incorporate more care, but it may not be somebody who lives right here. It may be somebody that travels in so that they can have a little bit of anonymity for their own health and for the people to trust and go and talk to them. So the next page is the last one. I'll go into deep detail, but the black and white county page, and that just shows how we calculate the funding request. Then on the graph, you'll see specific to Cheyenne County, the 52 individuals, but there's also two numbers underneath. So SPMI stands for severe and persistent mental illness. That is adults who are likely going to need care for the rest of their lives. Some you may know well, some nobody may know that they're getting services, but they're provided additional therapy services, case management services, and have had some type of psychiatric hospitalization, or at least as risk of. Those individuals we serve, and we get funding from the state to help provide that service. The SED is for severe emotional disturbance. Those are youth at risk of hospitalization or out-of-home placement that have had significant events in their life that have led to them having some mental distress. We serve those kids every year, regardless of whether or not they can pay. Having the SED designation allows us to access funding through the state as well, and helps stand up that, where we're able to go from the $17,000 funding request to spending $76,000 in Cheyenne County, because some of those individuals are provided funding so that we can provide for them. But the need doesn't stop at those 52 individuals, and especially not at those 16 individuals that needed additional intensive care from us. We know there's individuals that need more help, and we will continue to provide that in any way that we can. I hope that all of you can see the need that we have, and I understand budgets. I spent hours of my life looking at budgets and things like that from a business side. But hope that you'll continue to fund us at least at the level that we have before, and continue to utilize our contact information and let us know if there are something we can do more. Because being the new guy, I get to have the very easy excuse of, I don't know, unless you tell me. But I absolutely want to know, because if there's something we can change, adjust, do better for your community, that's why we're here. So, I'll let Carla go into a little bit of what we do on the school side, marketing side.
So my name's Carla McPhee. I'm actually originally from Atwood, and I am a community engagement and education specialist. So I come out, some of the things, so Craig talked about the individuals that we work with. Part of my job is providing mental health education, and within the last year, we've done a couple of mental health first aid classes with the hospital and EMS, employees from the Good Samaritan Center, those types of folks, at no cost to them or you guys, of course. And then earlier this year, we actually did a youth mental health first aid class with the high school teachers, to give them some more tools to help identify kids that may need some help. We do provide services in schools, where if there is a kid who needs service, it makes it easier if a parent doesn't have to take off work to take them to an appointment. They can go into the counselor's office, they have an iPad, and meet with their therapist. Kind of a neat thing. We have had in at least one instance where the kid's at school, mom's at work, steps out into the parking lot, and dad's out in the field, and they did a family session because they could be on Zoom. Getting the three of them together at the same time, same place, probably not gonna happen. But we were able to do that through Zoom, and get that done. One of the things that I do is I come out, I talk to your hospital, I talk to your law enforcement. I haven't actually met with your sheriff yet because he's hard to pin down. However, I have talked to like the emergency management, people like that, just to say, hey, what are you guys seeing and how can we help in a better way? So that's kind of my job. So if you're hearing things and maybe you can't get a hold of him, you can always call me and I can look into that further.
If you call me, I'm likely to hand you off to someone like Carla to do it, but I want to be aware of the concerns. We are doing some really exciting things that are not in place yet, but I wanted to make sure that you are all aware of it as we move forward. One of the initiatives is to really focus on how much better we can serve the school and our youth. And we have services in all the schools. The annual report, all the green dots, which there's over 40 of them if I counted correctly, are schools in the Northwest Kansas area that we are providing services in, including here in St. Francis.
And Bird City.
And Bird City. We have individuals through televideo services on an iPad, similar to what she described. We will continue to try to provide additional case management services, which is our community services arm that provides people the ability to live, work, socialize, run normal lives is what a lot of those case management workers do that you see walking around in the community with these individuals. And if we can provide therapists that are willing to travel around, because like I said, they may not want to live in St. Francis because nobody may see them because they'd be like, well, I don't want to go down there. They'll tell everybody my secrets because they live right next door to me. But we're still going to try to find ways to do that. Televideo does offer some awesome options though. In our psychiatric care, we have someone who's done research at Johns Hopkins University working for us every day, providing psychiatric services. We don't find those kind of things if we rely on having them travel and go in person because that wouldn't work. But you can connect right to them at any of our branch offices or directly from home on your smartphone. Really beneficial process, but being a small town kid, I'd like to be in person too, and so we're going to continue to try to evaluate that process too. We are working on a crisis intervention center. We accepted some grant dollars from the state that we're exploring the concept. I have a hard time believing we won't continue to push forward. We just have to find a way to do it, which is what I keep telling my staff. You're right, I don't know the answer to that, but we're going to find a way. Crisis Intervention Center, similar to our Schwaller Center. The Schwaller Center in Hayes right now is a voluntary crisis center where someone can come in and say, I'm struggling with my mental health and I need some help. And they can stay up to a 72-hour stay, stabilize on medications, or just have evaluation and additional 24-hour services. Maybe they're having thoughts of suicide and they don't trust themselves. And they come and they check themselves into this facility to help get them stabilized. That center, all the services that are provided would continue to be provided in this upscale center called a Crisis Intervention Center. But we would add a couple different elements. One would be substance abuse. And substance abuse and mental health are co-occurring in many, many, many cases. But this facility would allow someone to be admitted, same 72-hour process, without a mental health diagnosis, just simply that they're having substance abuse issues, which is different from what we've had at the Schwaller Center. We also have involuntary care for either substance abuse, mental health, or both. Involuntary care is a huge step forward. It allows individuals that are already getting served, that we probably all know stories about, that end up in jail cells and ERs and hospital beds that aren't getting the care they need. But that's the best place for them, given the current situation. This crisis intervention center would create a 72-hour facility, which also has court rulings that could extend it if needed for all kinds of scenarios. But the ideal stay is that 72 hours. And even if we have to restrain them and medicate them to keep them there. So an individual could show up at the door, fill out the proper paperwork, and say this person is a danger to themselves or others. And of course, be evaluated by our therapist to make sure, because you don't want my mother-in-law to drop me off or vice versa. But it is a facility that's designed to treat people and get the help that they need. They're not gonna get the help they need even though they're safe in the jail cell. They're not getting any of the services they need if they fit those qualifications. It is not decided where we would build this facility. Volume-wise, it seems like Hayes would be a better fit, but that's a long ways away from here. And so we're gonna continue to evaluate locations and how that functions. It's a 24-hour facility and would require us to have anywhere from 30 to 50 staff, depending on how many beds we have. And so we're going to look at locations and feasibility of hiring the staff, but I have not talked to anybody that doesn't say it's needed. And one of the challenges that isn't part of the state regulations for this facility that I know we're going to address in Western Kansas is how do we figure out transportation? 20 different sheriff's offices, all the city police departments, all the volunteers and individuals in EMS that are willing to travel around to get people where they need to go isn't a functional model, even if one does it better than the other. And so I feel like we need to find some way to provide a secure transport concept that allows anyone to get to the CIC, which takes away the barrier of Hayes is, we just drove it, 2 hours and 40 minutes away. Doing that when you're already having an individual with a mental health crisis is challenging. And so I, again, don't know how exactly it will work. As a kid, I had to ask my dad what those Rinsberger vans were, and once I found it out, I'm like, oh, yes, it would be way different clientele than picking somebody up whenever they had to stop their operator shift with the railroad. But if we can have that kind of a concept where the vans can reply or respond to anywhere that somebody needs transport to the CIC, I think we're going to see a huge increase in usage, which is what's needed, so.
And all of that would take a great burden off of your local resources, your local EMS, your local law enforcement, your local hospital, who aren't equipped to necessarily handle that situation. And
So we're hiring, if you know anybody that's that kind of person that has no plan and is super excited to just figure it out as they go along. It's a very complicated position. But I'm in the middle of interviewing right now, and I'm sure that we'll find the right person. And their job will be to help us explore all the possibilities, figure out where we should put it, how we can staff it, and their position will be paid for by the state for 1 year. But again, community support, whether it's financial or whether it's just providing us resources and knowledge to help us build it, is going to be extremely important as we move it forward. We are starting a fundraising campaign which has not been emphasized before. And on the back of our annual report, Hayes is a ways away, but if you and your spouse or significant other are interested in a night out, we are raising money on June 1st, which is a Saturday, and doing a masquerade on Main, where it's going to be a little cocktail party and hopefully raise some good money for the work that we do. But I know our fundraising efforts are just beginning if we're going to be able to stand up a facility like that and serve all the residents that have those needs. So hopefully I'll continue to be telling you about all the great things that are happening and where it's coming as we go through the years. So, okay. Any questions or anything else we can do for you guys?
No.
You did a good job.
Yep.
Great.
I snuck in here late, but I'm Lisa Phillips. I am the Program Director at Senior Life Solutions, and I am your representative on their board.
She is.
So I have yet to make it to a commissioners meeting, and I apologize, but I will gladly come anytime you guys need me to. And I try to make your guys' meetings as much as I can, but life gets busy on a Thursday night sometimes.
Yeah. It's a long drive, but we feed them great
Yeah,
dinner every
well,
time.
I like Zoom. I have a 5-year-old I have to take care of, so Zoom works great for me, but.
Absolutely understand, but yeah, if there's anything that we can do for you, any of the three of us, we're here for you, so. Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming out.
Absolutely.
Good to meet you. You too.
Greg, nice to meet you.
Enjoy your day.
Carla, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, you keep track of all these guys?
Try to.
Right?
A little bit.
Thank you all.
Yep.
Folks, I'm with Western Kansas Child Advocacy Center. I had an error in my scheduling in my head. I'm in Wallace and in Sherman here this afternoon, so I had the impression you folks were in Mountain Time. So if you folks would have me, or I can reschedule, it's up to you.
You're here, I think.
Okay, I think I'm in Sherman next. I was like, well, I figured I'd come up this way. I do greatly apologize, very embarrassing. I kind of noticed it on my way up here. I was like, oh no, you folks are not, and I don't understand the systems, but that's a whole nother nightmare of things.
You had to live here in the 70s and you need to know.
We're one of the smart counties out here.
I just don't understand it, but I was like, well, okay, I
When they
noticed my
changed-
error on the way.
When they changed the time zones, every county
Thank
could
you.
vote what they wanted to do.
Is that what it was? Okay, that makes more sense, because it's just like, man, we're not too far in that line there. But okay, yeah, it's just like, I don't understand how I got this wrong.
It's like kind of that way in Nebraska, it just kind of wanders around.
No sense, like, no, somewhat, yeah. You figure you might
Lines.
go by lines of longitude, latitude and
One
whatnot.
commissioner I know of that was on at the time, he received death threats.
Over the time zones? Sorry, wow. Oh, folks, I won't keep you any longer than, I do apologize for that. Again, my name is Don with the Western Kansas Child Advocacy Center. I think I remember you folks from last year as well too. I was fairly green, I still am, in all honesty. There's still a lot to learn with these folks, but we're doing a great work out here. We essentially are the first response after a report of child abuse is made. Our agency, with agreements with DCF and law enforcement, we first schedule the interview with the child and their family to first kind of get an idea of what's kind of going on in the home. We're not there essentially as an investigative, we're there for the child. We're there to see what's kind of been going on, what we can kind of help with, what services we can provide. Like I said, if we first kind of come in contact with the child, we do an interview. The interview is most important for our agency and for the greater picture of that child's safety. We want them to feel okay. They want them to feel comfortable. We want them to feel like they understand that it's okay that they came forward with these claims. Unfortunately, more likely than not, this child still cares very deeply for the individual who's the accused. Right now with our agency, nationwide, it's about 90% plus that these children know who their perpetrator is. Our agency, unfortunately, we're sitting about 97% have some sort of relationship with the child or with the family in some sort of way. So that's why it's very key and very important these children are comfortable. They're okay. They know that it's okay to disclose what's kind of going on. Rather than a interrogation room in a law enforcement center with an officer, which there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, sometimes children are taught to be intimidated by these folks, especially if things are going on at home. Hey, we don't talk to police because X, Y, and Z. So, like I said, it's a ununiformed interviewer in a safe space, kind of one of our mobile units essentially. So since you folks are not near an office, it's not realistic to have an office in every county, which would be nice. But it's a lot of overhead. Takes away from services from the children. We're able to kind of come out to the area and provide those services. While the interview is being conducted, DCF is present, law enforcement, and any other agency that might be tasked with the safety of this child as well. The goal is one interview. First and foremost, not to re-traumatize a child, and then second, for them not to essentially question, them to question themselves. Well, hey, I came forward, now I'm being questioned by what's been going on several times. Maybe I was wrong to come forward, maybe nobody's believing me. So that's very kind of key in our agency. An advocate is assigned to the family as well too, which comes from our office as well too, to seek out any services that might be needed. If there's a financial hardship we see in the future, things like that. Housing, if that's something that's kind of coming up, we're able to kind of facilitate that as well. Try and help find those resources as well too. We do stick very closely with the families throughout the court process, and then we do aid county attorneys as needed. Whether it be if the child's coming to testify, we do kind of mock court scenarios, just say, hey, this is what the courtroom will look like. This is, there's going to be 12 individuals here. The individual that is accused will be here. Judge is going to be there. Court is terrifying as an adult, let alone as a child. I mean, it's, and then we do stay on. We're able to provide mental health services to the children as well too. Unfortunately, I think we're seeing the statistics usually tell us about 80% of the children that are abused end up leaning towards some sort of self-coping, which that might be alcohol, drugs, things like that. So hopefully we can lay that groundwork for some good mental health choices. And then most importantly, like I've kind of mentioned too, we're mobile. So we're able to kind of come out to these kids in this area. We're able to be outside of school for 30 minutes, 45, whatever time might allow, in an unmarked, one of our buses or an RV, where we're able to kind of work with the child, hopefully kind of curb any sort of behavioral issues they might see, things like that, or just hopefully set them up to be a productive adult. I mean, that's the end, that's the goal, essentially, as well. I've been with the agency for about a year now, and one time that I did help a company get out of court, it was kind of stands out to me. This gal had been in our services since just before COVID. I believe she was 12 and a half, I remember correctly. There's other developmental delays, things like that. I mean, fairly nice, kind-hearted gal, but COVID kind of put a wrench in her trial. It was jury trial was what ended up going to be, and so it was quite a bit of time drawn out, unfortunately. Biological mother didn't believe her, so essentially shipped her off to California to live with grandma. This was stepfather who was accused, and so it was a very tense courtroom. It was the first time mom was in the same room, stepdad and her, in quite some time. She was very nervous, rightfully so, and I'm just kind of sitting there watching one of our advocates talk her up. Hey, this is the last time you have to come to this city. We're after this. You get all this weight off your shoulders. You speak. You let them know. You answer the questions accordingly. And we're at the end of this part of this journey. Your journey's not over with. You're still, she's still seeking out services, therapy in her area, things like that. But we're closing this book here, essentially. Gal gets on stand, sorry. I don't want to say stage. And kind of begins questioning. And, I have no issue with defense attorneys. There's just sometimes I know they have a job to do, which is understandable. First time she mentioned, she called the accused dad. The gal very politely, ma'am, please don't refer to him as that. This is his name, please use him by his name. And that was a big step for her. Like, okay. And I was like, okay, I understand the defense attorney's been seeing these names on a sheet for years. I understand, okay. I was like, and I was like, she was a little rattled, she was upset. Second time we used that wording along with a very aggressive question. I'm like, wait, what are we doing here? And I'm still kind of, maybe I'm reading too much into it. I was like, okay, well, the gal stopped the process politely. Ma'am, I'd like this individual referred to by his name. Okay. So the question kind of continues. Third time around, and it's an even more aggressive question, paired on with the dad. So the gal stops everything, very rightfully put. Ma'am, would you mind just doing me a favor so we can continue? Can you repeat his name 3 times so we can continue in our process? And that's just how I like things said. Rattled defense attorney enough that she couldn't continue questioning. It upset her. But it's like, well, you upset this gal, I believe we were, if I remember correctly, we were 14. If I remember developmentally, I think we were sitting around 12, unfortunately. There's a lot of other underlying issues, struggles that this gal was going through. And very politely put, it was just like that's, and you could see her kind of lift out of the chair finally, like she got some of her confidence back. And I was like, okay, this is a part of why we're here essentially. And that case unfortunately didn't go the way we would have liked, but at the end of the day, that we asked the child, hey, how do you feel about everything? I'm happy to go home to grandma and I don't have to come back to this town. We're just like, okay, that's what it's all about. We always have to remove ourselves, which I have a hard time doing that sometimes. I get very invested in things like, okay, this is what I'd like to see. And then I forget this isn't my life essentially. But I mean, that's essentially why our agency's there. She's, luckily receiving services from different agencies similar to ours where she's at now, but that's kind of the bigger picture of why we're there. She's okay. The advocate, the therapist that she's able to work with, things like that, we're able to kind of empower her to step forward and say, hey, this is what's been going on. And in all honesty, now there's more documentation. There were some other children still in that home, unfortunately. So, and that's kind of stays on our radar. From what I understand, he's states away now. Mom's still in that area. I don't know for sure on that. I was like, I need to back away from this because I was kind of asked questions. I knew people that knew people, but I was like, okay, this gal's okay. I need to back out of this. I can't get too invested in these things, and it's a struggle sometimes. But so kind of in this area here in the last 12 months, we provided 2 of our forensic interviews. We've been out and we provided advocacy 14 times for 3 children. We also do have a doctor on staff in the event that there's any sort of sexual assault allegations or obvious. That's not obvious, but current physical abuse, our doctor's able to come out and provide those exams as well too. Looks like we're out in this area. Last year we served one child, and we've attended court 2 times in the last year. Like I said, that's kind of the biggest thing too. We're able to be mobile. We also have that mobile medical unit as well too. It's a godsend. I mean, it's unfortunately the Sane Start program is what it's called essentially. So say if an adult is a victim of an assault, some sort of sexual assault, they have to go and receive that exam from a certified nurse there at the hospital. If they have to go, usually what we end up seeing, if someone has to travel, like the gentleman kind of mentioned before, if anyone has to travel usually any more than 40 miles for any sort of services, they're less likely to receive that service. We're able, luckily, to come out and perform that. Hey, this is the time we're going to be there, especially with parents. That's a day off of work. Sometimes, up and back, that kind of deal. We're able to kind of come out and bring those services to the folks in your area. So I know Garden right now, unfortunately, I think they're doing a big revamp of their hospital. Their same program is on hold. This is Garden City, 26,000 odd? Like I know, unfortunately, folks from previous agencies I'm with, for these exams, they have to drive to Dodge, or if they're lucky to Lakin, because things are on hold because of ownership change and all that fun stuff. It's like, man, I understand those problems, but we can't. Folks are still needing services. Like what? We can't slow things down. Luckily for children in that area as well too, we have our doctor on staff that we're able to kind of facilitate those. So she's a godsend. Hopefully one of these days I'd like to bring the buses out and let you folks kind of see, and that we kind of see what we're doing.
You have 2 buses?
We have 5. 2 that are interview. I'm sorry, we have 6. 2 that are interview, 3 that are therapy, and then 1 is the medical. Is that math right? Yeah. So.
They're located in the 2 counties?
I'm sorry?
The 6 buses are in the 2 counties?
We have them staged out. So there are, the medical one stays in Scott City, and it kind of gets dispatched accordingly. And they get the interview and the therapy. An interview, a therapy, and the medical are staged out of Scott City. The other ones are there in Hayes. So they get staged out of there. Hayes, we actually have we're fortunate enough that office has a medical room, so we don't need the medical in that area. But our doctor, if she needs to travel up to Mankato, she'll travel up to Mankato to whatever services we need to provide. But we have them staged in those areas just to It's kind of the midway point, not necessarily, I mean, it's the best we can, I suppose. and Where we have room to store these vehicles as well, too. I mean, they're RVs, so they're not 6 RVs in one area. That's a whole nother complex in itself, so. So yeah, we staged 3 in Scott City and the other 3 are in, Hayes area, so. I believe, I'm not sure where, trying to remember where they're staged. I'm not sure how that relationship is, but we're fortunate enough that someone's able to store them for us, so which is nice. But you folks have any questions for me or? No. Okay. And then and I'm gonna leave this here with you folks as well too, to test our statistics and the rest of our services as well too. If I can make the request for 4,000 to be considered for your budget. Again, I do apologize. I had everything in my head set to Mountain Time. And I was like, okay, I'm making good time. And just this thing in the back of my head. I was like, I'm gonna check things real quick here.
It happens quite a bit.
And I'm like sitting there and I was like, yeah. And then, like I said, I'm head south to Sherman and to Wallace, and that's, my head was in Mountain Time the entire time. But
I don't know, Sherman and Wallace, the only 2 on Mountain?
No.
Sherman,
It goes down
Wallace,
south.
Sherman, Wallace, Wichita,
Yeah.
Syracuse, and Wichita. No, that's Leota. Yeah, so, yeah, that's,
The far southwest corner. They're in
Somewhere
Central.
down there breaks off.
it breaks off, I believe, because down in that corner, I believe, is Morton. Morton is still in Central. So it does interesting deal there. Yeah, it's about due. Last week was a lot of fun issues with hot water heater and kid getting to track practice, and yeah, it's good. It's been an interesting last couple days, so hopefully it'll taper off here soon. Do you gentlemen have any other
Did you say
questions?
4,000?
Yes, sir. I believe that's what was contributed last year.
Thank you.
I'll get out of y'all's hair. I appreciate y'all.
Thanks for coming out.
Absolutely. Thank you. Good support, folks. Thank you.
Can I ask for executive session 5 minutes?
Yeah, can I use the bathroom first?
Yep.
All right.
Make a motion, let's motion it, then I can show it.
Make a motion for 5 minutes of executive session.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for 5 minutes executive session for non-elected personnel. All those in favor, signify